All right, Lee. Thank you so much. Am I saying that correctly, Leigh
Yeah,
Massey? Excellent.
that is
Thank you so
correct. Yes, yes.
much.
Great to see you, Frank.
Yes, absolutely. Such a pleasure to connect with you. I'm very grateful to Kim Taylor for connecting us. And
Yes,
again, this is a very casual introduction of yourself, the Atlanta metro area. Loving to hear a lot about your experiences. And I'm sure it'll be a great opportunity for the clients to work with you and have
yes,
you guide them in their search. All right, take it away, Lee. Tell us a little bit about you.
absolutely. Well, Frank, thanks so much for the invitation. Love to connect with you, and obviously, Kim Taylor is one of my most favorite people. So it's always great to have that full circle connection. Um, yeah, I so my name is Leigh Massey Hayes. I am the Vice President of Relocation and Referrals for Atlanta Fine Homes, Sotheby's International Realty. Under my purview, our department oversees all of our corporate business that comes in and out of Atlanta through our corporate partners and through all of our referral partners throughout the world, whether it's within our Sotheby's International Realty referral network or outside of that, other networks that we belong to. So, we really touch on a good amount of business throughout the company, and it can be at all ends and spectrums. So I have been with the company, oh gosh, I'm scared to date myself. I think it's going on 15 years now. And before that, I actually was with our previous firm. So we are family owned and operated. Our owners are a family that had a previous firm here in Atlanta, a local boutique real estate firm that was purchased by another larger company. They stepped out of the spotlight for a few years and decided they wanted to get back into it and came in and started Atlanta Fine Homes. So if that tells you anything, I feel that strongly about our leadership that I've been with them for this long. They are great people and truly pillars of our community. And I am myself born and raised in Atlanta, so I found a way to parlay my love of my hometown into a job. So I've been very fortunate that part of what I do is try and extol the virtues of Atlanta and share everything that I love about it. So I'm very lucky that I was able to find a way to make a living at that.
This is
So
fantastic. I
go
love that. Keep going. Yes.
ahead. Our firm, we are about 600 agents strong throughout the metro area.
Mhm.
And we do say metro area. So, depending on where you're coming from, we are not um, restricted to the city limits per se. So the actual city of Atlanta, we are a much bigger footprint than that. Metro area is technically 29 counties. That is
Mhm.
a massive geography. So it's always funny when we talk to folks who are saying, oh, I'm coming to Atlanta, I'm moving to Atlanta, and we'll say, what part? And they say, oh, Kennesaw. And we're like, that's a good 40 miles out this way. So it's a very large geography. And so we cover a good amount of it. We cover the core of the metro area with about six, like I said, 600 agents, 4 offices strategically placed around the metro. Um, we are fortunate that we hold the number one. Currently, we are atop the list in brokerages for our volume. So we've been very fortunate, and that is a testament to our team and our agents and the work that they do. So we are we're thrilled to welcome anybody else who's looking to come in and share a little bit about the area. So, like I said, we're large. We are, I believe, we just made it to the number 3 as far as population of metros. Number 3 behind, I think we're behind Houston and I guess maybe New York. I have to go back and look at that. Maybe that I can't remember. We're always right there neck and neck with some folks in Texas, some folks in California, some folks in New York. But I believe we are in the number 3 position right now with 6.3 million people. It's pretty large. So to that point, this conversation is, I do want it to be a starting place and it can be an evolution,
Mhm.
as it's very hard to pinpoint without knowing, spending some time in Atlanta or knowing what you're looking for, exactly where you want to go. So we'll talk a little bit in generalities today, and we can certainly begin to narrow that focus or really drive down and pinpoint specific locations as your folks go forward and kind of flesh out what they're looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is certainly the goal, and I really appreciate it. Um, uh, and towards the end of the call, I'll mention four names. We'd love to get a shout out from you. Those are the specific clients that we certainly want looking at Atlanta. And so this is great. You've had a wonderful, 15 years plus experience. And I love the fact that the owners of the company in the Atlanta metro area, I'm going to learn that term, um, have been involved in the industry, and then it seems like they're also involved in the community, and so
Yeah.
that's a wonderful thing to be successful and then share that success in the community. So would you speak to, it's a really large 29 counties. That's a big
Big.
coverage. Would you and I'm always already thankful, as I mentioned to you at the top of the call, that you have added me to receive listings from Sotheby's. And
Mhm.
so I'm thankful to be plugged in, and we're doing some initial due diligence. So there's definitely a few properties that have stood out for us that align with client interests. Um,
Right.
and would you speak to a little bit about what are some areas that would be interesting to affluent clients to explore, either perhaps even doing a new build,
Hmm.
tear down. We're not talking about where capital necessarily is something to consider. But would you speak to a little bit about some pockets, maybe 4 or 5 of them that might be of interest? Uh,
Sure.
uh, we'd also talked about some waterfront, but I know that that's a little bit of a challenging thing in the Atlanta metro area, but just whatever might be interesting to affluent clients that we should be paying attention to.
Of course, of course. So we really have, if we kind of divide the metro into quadrants, um, going at city center, so not necessarily downtown Atlanta, because that is not necessarily our residential mecca, but if we go out from there, our just north of downtown Midtown is our area called Buckhead. It's a neighborhood. It's within the Atlanta city limits. It is our um, traditionally it's been the hub of where our old money has resided. Atlanta, old Atlanta. It was, it's steeped in history. The governor's mansion. It is where the probably, lack of a better term, sounds a little old school, but what we used to call our, the Rodeo Drive, that style shopping area
Hmm.
is in that Buckhead
Hmm.
district. So certainly there you're going to have a confluence of affluent clients. As far as new build, what you would see there is tear down and rebuild or gut renovations. There's really no raw land left. Maybe I can think of two large parcels off the top of my head that are privately owned. One, I believe, is actually floodplain, so you wouldn't want to build in it anyways. And then, so there, as far as raw land, there's not a ton there, but you certainly have the opportunity for infill housing with tear down and rebuild.
Yes.
Um, Once you start to leave the core, I would say our next most popular destination is going to be straight north.
Mhm.
So up to the areas of Alpharetta, Milton. That's where you're probably going to see your next, really what we've seen a flight of funds. You know, it, that area, the northern suburbs, saw a surge of development. I would say starting in the early 80s, really came through 80s, 90s. And then you saw a resurgence in the 2000s, a little bit farther north, like I said, in that Milton area, which is going to be 30 miles north of the city-ish, give or take.
Mhm.
And really there, what we do see there is more of larger land parcels. There are some zoning requirements there that lots have to be a certain lot size. So we're looking at acre plus lots there.
Mhm.
It was traditionally an equestrian area, so you do have quite a bit of equestrian farms, hobby farms, things like that. So you really that you'll see that in that northern Milton adjacent Cherokee County areas there. That's where you've still got some opportunities for larger land parcels,
Mm-hmm.
whether or not it's raw land or, like I said, original equestrian or farmland that's now able to be redeveloped into more of a strictly residential sense. So that's going to be about dead north of the city. Like I said, that area in and around Milton. Um, when you start to go, if you're looking at the clock, let's say that's, noon up the clock, we start to then circle back over westward into, you can look into, then you start to move towards, um, I would say, certainly opportunities for, that's one of the greatest things about Metro Atlanta. We have pockets of housing for everybody. So there's always going to be a pocket of affluence in most locations. It's whether or not it's concentrated, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to start to, as you move in different directions, you'll have smaller concentrations. So if you move to the left or move westward,
Yes.
you're going to find probably more opportunity for land.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but you may be, if you're looking for privacy, that may be a great opportunity there to find more open space, some land that's undeveloped. You're not looking at, direct folks on either side of you or close to you, but you may not have that confluence of strong affluence that you may, if that's what you're looking for.
Right.
If you moved east, so going around the clock more towards 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, we do have a lot of our golf course communities, country club communities are located out that way. So like a community called River Club, which is in Swanee, is
Mm-hmm.
going to be your golf course, your larger lots, availability of still getting into to build, still some raw land lots available there,
Mm-hmm.
things like that. Certainly, there's more additional golf course communities, country club communities, but I would say if you're looking for raw land and still the ability to get in on a larger parcel, 1 to 3 acres and build, probably something like River Club is going to be your best bet there. Um, and really, then when we start to, if you're really, again, going back to looking for large parcels of raw land, which we just don't have in the city core
Yeah.
anymore, you could go south of the city. South
Okay.
of the city, we like to refer to affectionately as our Southern Crescent.
Okay.
This is an area that has, again, it was later in development. We probably up until I don't know, maybe 20 years ago would have been predominantly rural, aside from
Mm-hmm.
pockets. A lot of folks have heard of Peachtree City. It
Mm-hmm.
is our, if you ever, if you ever watched some of those movies where everybody, it's kind of living in a bubble. Everybody drives a golf cart. Everything's connected by cart paths. It's very quintessential Mayberry. That was one of our only big draws on the south side. And honestly, speaking of, I think you and I spoke briefly about the airport, and we can talk about that in a little bit. But that was where, because we are the hub of Delta, we are the home of Delta Airlines. That was where a lot of the pilots, a lot of the staff folks from the airport went to live, and that really got community coalesced originally in the 80s around Delta as being kind of the home of those employees. But since we, again, you start looking for land, you start looking for opportunities, we've seen a real flight to the south side because there was still opportunity there, land to be there. And especially if you were commuting, our airport is on the south side of the city. If you were a frequent traveler, if you were a daily commuter in air travel, that was a great place to live.
Mm-hmm.
Really helped you, cut down on traffic to the airport, accessibility. So we've really seen some growth there in that Southern Crescent, those areas of Fayetteville,
Mm-hmm.
um, Noonan, Sonoya, those kind of bedroom communities where their roots are a little more rural, but where you really are seeing you've got opportunity for land, you've got opportunity for development, and especially given the changes over the last 4 years and the ability to be a little more flexible in where you work and play, that ability, being able to live a little bit farther out, not having to do a daily drive commute into the city for a workplace
Mm.
has really helped some of those areas develop quite a bit more. So when you start to look for where's opportunity for growth and land, um, there are those available, and they are going to be a little bit farther outside. The challenge would be if you're trying to find kind of where's my confluence of affluence and where is there still great amounts of raw opportunity.
Yeah.
That overlap is going to be a little bit that looking for that overlap is going to be a little bit more tricky. But that being said, if you're on the upswing of the trend, then that's where you want to be. You want to get in before everybody else is there.
True. And
Um,
this is such a I've got to say, right? You and Kim, you guys really know it, really, truly. I mean, such a wonderful way to explain it all out, to split it out into quadrants. Even just sitting here and listening to you, I'm able to envision just, if you have the map of Atlanta, sort of ever pictured. I love your 2 p.m., 3 p.m. I love that explanation. And got to know about the Southern Crescent. That's really great.
yeah.
Great to know that term as well. And you're absolutely right, right? It really depends on what the client is looking for.
Mhm.
And a lot of times it may be that we present properties and that really gets the client sort of thinking. They're like,
Yeah.
I know at least one of these four would be interested in building a green home. And
Wonderful.
so that's sort of their that in their mind, and then they sort of listen to some of these things that we're sharing with them, and it
Hmm.
clicks like, okay,
Yeah.
this is a great area. This fits I don't really necessarily need Rodeo Drive because
Yeah.
Rodeo Drive is 3 miles from me. Uh,
Right.
I want to cover other boxes, and so I really, really appreciate you explaining it the way that you did. Uh,
Right.
maybe for them, the more important thing is having a larger property. And to that end, if you could speak. So we talked about these quadrants, we talked about, things that are closer to Atlanta. And
Hmm.
what the office in the Atlanta metro area has 600 agents. So if a client did come across something that was a little further out, right,
Hmm.
would that be something that we could help clients, right?
Absolutely. If it's in the metro area, we can cover it.
Excellent.
If we start to go out, if it's like, all right, we're going to change, now you're going to Columbus, Georgia, or Savannah, that gets a little bit different. Those are different locations,
Yes, yeah.
different cities where we've got access and we've got. So if we're looking in the metro area, we're certainly available to help there, and would be delighted to.
Yeah.
One of the greatest things about the metro area, and again, being born and raised here, I've watched it change and grow. And probably I would say, when I started my original career here, and I don't want to say that, 20 plus years ago, um, it was, and I grew up in the northern suburbs. So I grew up in Alpharetta, which is a northern suburb. And then after college, moved back in and wanted to live in the city and, do all the fun things that the young kids want to do in the city. And, at the time, that's where the draw was. Money moved to the interior.
Mhm.
Money wanted to come to the city for accessibility. That's where the good restaurants were. That's where the good shopping was. That's where the arts was. Um, and we have really seen over the last 20, 30 years that while that still exists, you don't have to do that anymore. We've seen a
Mhm.
flight to these other neighborhoods, these other cities, these other metro areas really create their own identity and their own community. So where it used to be maybe when I was a kid in Alpharetta, the best option for dinner was, the Chili's or the TGI Fridays.
Mhm. Mhm.
Now it's not that. Now you have James Beard award winning restaurants in the suburbs. And really, avant-garde art galleries and all the shopping you could ever imagine is available out in the communities, in the smaller communities as well. You don't have to come in to Atlanta. And it's really, I think that was driven by our size because
Mhm.
it just wasn't logistically possible anymore to drive in every night to go to dinner when
Yeah.
you really just wanted a really great experience and meal and in the neighborhood that you lived in. And
Yeah.
it's funny when I talk to a lot of folks, especially when part of my world is working with our economic development team in and around the area when they're recruiting companies and enterprise to the city. And one of the things they always say was like, where should I live? You know, what's the best place to live? And I say, well, we've got 10 of us in the room who live here, and I guarantee you will get 10 different answers.
Mhm.
And that is not because there's not a good answer. It's
Mhm.
because we've all found our personal place
Yeah.
that speaks to us. And that's what I really do love about Atlanta is that whatever you're looking for, we've got it. We can handle it.
Yeah.
It's just whatever you're personally looking for. And so I love my neighborhood because it's the one that works for me.
Yeah.
And my coworker who lives 30 minutes away loves her neighborhood
Yeah.
because it's the one that works for her.
Yeah.
And so I think that's really what part of the beauty is of our area is that because we are so large, um, we've been able to really carve out, if you're looking for XYZ community, this is where, here are the three that speak to that. Or if you're looking for ABC, here are the other three to speak to that. And that's one of the things I like the most about here is whatever you're looking for, we've probably got it,
Yeah.
with the exception of beachfront. I can't do that for you, unfortunately. But we do have a lot of really cool places, a lot of good communities that have their own vibe. They've got their own, community center. They've got their own. We really kind of that concept of building, developing their own, everybody's downtown core
Hmm.
has really been something that's been a focus over the last 30 years.
Yeah.
So Roswell, Marietta, Woodstock, Alpharetta, Swanee, they all have their own town centers.
Hmm.
So you've got that ability to, all right, I may live out in the suburbs, or I may live out on a large, piece of property in a more, um, you know, quiet setting, but I don't have to drive all the way into Atlanta to get the concept of walk around and go into the shops or see a gallery or have a great dinner or go to a show. We've got that at multiple different town centers throughout the metro area,
Yeah.
that you don't have to always be coming only into Atlanta. You've got opportunity there in other locations.
And yeah, exactly. I love that. And it's a testament to Atlanta planning and the community at large. Buckhead, I've certainly visited Buckhead, and you've got to say, right, it's like a downtown away from downtown.
Right.
And it sounds like there are other pockets that have sort of done similar
Mm-hmm.
creative things. I know the people who are sort of involved in the commercial
Mm-hmm.
development in Milton and
Yeah.
sort of the planning part of it. So
Yeah.
so I'm truly I think it's an example for other parts of the country to take and say, hey, look at Atlanta, and they've done a great job sort of creating these city centers where that sort of experience and lifestyle is not too far away, driving distance from what would be typically a quiet neighborhood. Could you,
Right.
and true, and you mentioned beachfront. Let's just talk about that, right?
Yeah.
Like, there may not be those opportunities directly, but you also
Mm-hmm.
get Savannah, right? So, and that's
Right.
possible, and um, and Sotheby's has a presence there, and so
Absolutely.
would certainly be able to work with great advisors in that market
Absolutely.
should the client want that sort of beachfront or a beachfront adjacent to Savannah so that they can have
Right.
a little bit of privacy. Uh, if you could speak sort of to that, access by private aircraft. Uh,
Sure.
I know it says 10 minutes, but if it just gets disconnected, I'm just going to call you back, okay?
Okay, no problem.
So yeah, so if you just speak to, that kind of a mobility, private mobility,
Sure.
in and out of Atlanta.
No problem. So yes, we do have private airports. Probably the most popular one is Peachtree DeKalb, affectionately called PDK. It is on the edge of Buckhead. So obviously, again, when you start to originally where it came from, it was a confluence of affluency. Um, so PDK also is if you do use, Wheels Up, if you're familiar as a private um, airfare, and they are based there at PDK. Their operations are based there. We moved them in about a year or two ago. Um, so there are definitely opportunities for private there. There's also one, if you go farther north, there's a private airport in Dawsonville at the north end. So if you are in Milton, Dawsonville might be a little bit closer.
Yeah.
You can fly into on the west side in Cobb County. There's one there, and then also we have Charlie Brown Airport, which is going to be South Fulton or east southeast Fulton.
Okay.
So there's multiple private airports in and around the area.
Yeah.
Um, and then, of course, I know, I mean, if I have the choice, I'd fly private as well. But if you have to get on commercial airlines, again, you've got the world's busiest airport right here in Atlanta.
So,
Um, it's funny. A lot of what I do, I also travel to quite a few conferences and things like that. And I've got like Kim Taylor and my other counterparts around the country. We're very tight and we always go together and we try and plan our flights together and what we're going to do. And when I had to talk to them, they're like, oh, well, I've got to connect through so and so. I'm like, my mind is blown. I can get anywhere in the world from Atlanta in pretty much, you can get anywhere in the country almost in 3 or 4 hours from Atlanta, and almost anywhere in the world in a direct flight. We're very fortunate here. So if for any reason you are not able to fly private one day and you do have to go commercial, it is very efficient to come in and out of Atlanta.
very
That
well
is that
connected,
is nice. Yeah.
100%. And also for international clients coming in
Yeah,
to our part of the world, gateway cities, Atlanta is one of the gateway cities, and it has been for a long time.
absolutely.
And a lot of international clients find that attractive. To
Absolutely.
be in close proximity to a well-connected airport. So if we have a client coming in from Japan, I think
Absolutely.
Atlanta really is a very attractive market because you know New York and New Jersey are great, but they are a little packed right now.
Yeah.
And Atlanta is an upcoming place to experience. And so to own a
Right.
property in that market makes sense for international clients as well. Hey, this is really great. Leigh Massey Hayes. Forgive me
Yeah.
for saying that incorrectly
Uh,
earlier, just saying Leigh Massey.
You're good.
This has been fantastic. Let's do a quick shout out. I'm gonna give you four names, okay?
Okay.
Mike Dalton.
Mike Dalton.
Yeah, no, so two separate names, right? So
Oh,
first name Jessica, second name Paul, third name Michael, fourth name Dalton. Okay, let's just give a
you
quick
got
shout to all of them. Michael actually met in Atlanta, so Michael should know this.
fantastic.
Um,
Excellent.
yeah,
I
but
love it. Well, Jessica, Paul, Dalton, and Mike, I would love to talk to you about Atlanta anytime. I hope you can see I have a passion for the area. Would love to answer any questions you have, and anytime, anything we can do to support Frank, please just let us know. We're here to help if you need it.
we are all here. You have 600 agents across 29
We
counties.
do.
Look at that. Thank you, Ken. That's so good, Lee Massey. And so, do I just call you Lee? Do I call you Lee
Lee is
Massey?
perfect. Leigh
Okay.
Massey is
Okay.
perfect.
Okay.
The reason why we do that is there actually is. We have an agent named Lee Hayes in one of our offices. So that way I keep my maiden name for the most part for work, because that way she doesn't get all my phone calls and have to return all my messages. So that's really what
This
it
is
is.
this is so okay. So I'm gonna pause the recording. This was so helpful. Really fantastic explanation of the Atlanta market. I'm going to stop.